Hey, so it's a good question to say, so how exactly are we as God's kids supposed to have real self-esteem? What's wild is to be able to do it, we have to look at things from a whole different perspective in a whole different way. I want to illustrate that by showing you, first of all, it's an Old Testament quote, but it's actually in the New Testament. It's Romans chapter 3, verses 10 through 18. Listen to this. As it is written, there is no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands, no one who seeks God. All have turned away, they have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Their throats are open graves, their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and misery mark their ways, and the way of peace they do not know. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Okay. I don't know if you got that or not, but it clearly is saying that you and I are absolutely hopeless. Huh. It's an odd thing to read that we're hopeless and somehow think that that's going to be a confidence builder. But the reality is that understanding of what we just read is crucial to have real self-esteem. Let me illustrate it this way. I'm in my office, and on my desk for decades now, there's been this cog that sits there. Now, it was given to me a long time ago. I don't really know what it's used for. It has very little value to me, but it's shiny, and I like that. I've got to tell you, though, that even though I do like this cog, I wouldn't give any one of my children for this cog. Now, wait. No, not even one of them. What's interesting, guys, is that God did. You see, the reality is this cog is a pretty good illustration of us. I want you to think about our text for just a minute that we've looked at today. 1 John 4, Romans 5. In each one of those situations, we've been told that we didn't love God, that we were helpless, that we were sinners, that we were enemies of God. I mean, it wasn't a pretty picture. And the reality is with all that, it says that God gave this, what he called this, atoning sacrifice. Now, that term there actually means propitiation. Now, propitiation is kind of a tough one. So, what propitiation means is, number one, a debt that is owed that has to be paid. That's our sin that had to be paid. But the second part of it is, not only was the debt owed, but it actually means that we ticked God off. It actually means that God, as a God of wrath, was angry for our behavior and had to be repaid. You have to understand, guys, that Jesus went ahead and made that sacrifice for us anyway. If nothing else, we were just like this cog. And the reality is there wasn't really any value that we had, and yet he did that anyway. Now, I want you to think about the world we live in. We live in a world that values us because of what we bring to the table, whatever that may be. What's wild is that if in fact our world doesn't view that we have those things that are valuable, then we are worthless to the world. Here's the wild thing. God already knew that we brought no value. God didn't need anything from us, and so we brought no value to him, and yet he loved us anyway in spite. Now think about it. The world loves us because of what we bring. God loves us in spite of what we don't. As you have to think about that we have nothing to honor God, or to offer God, nothing. And yet God loves us so much, so completely, that to God, we're not just valuable, that in spite of having nothing to offer, we are precious. We are priceless to God, so much so that he offered his son for a cog. Guys, you have to realize that if we really want to live with true self-esteem, we have to rethink how we view it. Understanding that in God's world, less is actually more. That our lack of value enables us to have true value in relationship with God. It absolutely changes everything. So this week, let's focus on understanding real self-esteem because of what we don't bring to the table. Understanding that God loves us in spite of ourselves, and through that we can have a self-esteem that's based on that foundation of how much he loves us. Let's do that this week.